Welcome in another edition of the Dirt Racing Podcast. Let's get started. For the news and results portion, basically the Outlaws, World of Outlaws Sprint Cars ran last weekend. Friday night at Port Royal, Donnie Schatz won, and Saturday, Rain and Karma got the best of the Outlaws. If you don't know what I'm meaning, go back and listen to last week's show. So 8 points going into next week's World Finals on between Schatz and Sweet. So 8 points, and then also on the line down there will be the big block modified points title as well. Speaking of points for this week, the showdown for the ASCS title, called the Red River Rivalry as they're putting it, between Sam Haferteeth and Blake Hahn, goes down at Texas Motor Speedway for their final races of the year. On Dirt Vision this weekend will be a lot of racing from Charlotte, as the short track championships will be on Dirt Vision. A lot of divisions competing in that. And in the state of Iowa, hopefully, we'll know a decision by tomorrow, so keep an eye on the Facebook and Twitter page. The final race in Iowa for 2019 takes place at Columbus Junction, weather permitting. In this part, you'll hear an interview done in Pennsylvania, as TJ Stutz has an amazing story. We reached out for TJ on the show, so hopefully we'll have him sometime. But here is that interview right now.
Track has no shortage of great stories, from lifelong fans to drivers who seem unstoppable. But there are few people more inspiring than TJ Stutz, and racing may have saved his life.
So TJ Stutz, he determines when the cars get back up to speed.
October 19th, TJ Stutz finds himself in victory lane for the first time at Port Royal.
Turn number one, almost making contact.
No one ever gave up on each other, no matter how bad it got. And now they're seeing victory.
It's relief for the Stutz family.
That win was probably more beneficial to my boys, my family, all of the people that have supported me.
Because 1 year, 4 months, and 3 days earlier, TJ's life was flipped upside down.
It took me a couple days to remember, me and Buckle were getting together.
On June 16th, 2018, the number 11 crashed at Port Royal in the feature.
The big crashes that look real spectacular and all the stuff flies off, they don't hurt near as bad as the ones that just stop.
It wasn't his first crash, but this time he broke his tailbone.
Humbling, surreal. It's been a lot harder than I ever would have thought.
The recovery was difficult, only it wasn't just a broken back.
And because of it, you find out that you have cancer that, had they not found through those scans, would have been terminal before you were symptomatic.
Doctors found a neuroendocrine tumor, an unusual form of cancer.
It's what killed Steve Jobs. They thought they had his contained, and he was dead 7 years later. So was mine going to be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? No one can really give you that answer.
So 2 weeks before Christmas, he has surgery to remove the tumor. And 3 months later, he's back in a race car.
I thought I would just snap back, and it has not just been a overnight, hey, you feel like you did on December 9th. Am I back to 100%? No, but at least we have that chance to get back to 100%. Why wouldn't I get back to racing? I mean, in my eyes, my love for that is what has given me a chance to maybe enjoy the rest of my life.
Spending every weekend at the track with his sons, Ethan and Reese, never giving up, always looking for the next race.
I think racing motivated him to fight, to get back on his feet. This is his first love, without a doubt.
TJ was very clear with me. He doesn't want his story to be seen as a sob story because he feels very lucky that they were able to operate and hopefully take care of the cancer. He knows there are a lot of people who have to go through extended amounts of treatment. So he wanted to make sure that we didn't make this a sob story, but that we did impress upon people how important this is.
And to be clear, because he got into the accident, they caught the cancer.
Yes.
Wow. So ironic that that's sort of lucky.
Lucky. A crash is lucky.
I wish him the best.
And stories like that and driver updates you can also find on our Facebook page, but appreciate somebody pointing it out on the internet. And what did you think? An injury would save your life. So if anybody knows TJ, I'll still try to get in touch with him to hopefully have him on the show. But just encourage him to come on the show if you know him personally. Today's guest is Dave Argabright. And we hit on a lot of topics. So here is the interview with Dave Argabright. Hall of Famer, you've probably seen him on TV, read some of his work. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Marshall. Thanks for having me on.
Your newest project right now is with Jimmy Sills. Can you explain that one?
Yep, I've written a number of books through the years, primarily most of them autobiography-type books, and my most recent is, as you say, with Jimmy Sills, released it just a few weeks ago, and very excited about it. So far, the reception's been really, really good, and I'm real pleased. I'm really pleased with how the book turned out, and I'm pleased with that Jimmy's happy. That's a big deal.
Okay, and then where can I get some of your other books, like Lone Wolf and some of those?
Everything I got is at my website, daveargabright.com, DaveArgabright.com. I've always self-published and marketed my own books, and Brad Doty's book, Still Wide Open, is out of print right now, but everything else we've got.
Okay. And then you do some of the TV work. You started that what year?
My first TV experience was a really long time ago. I did a couple of sort of one-off type things locally close to home here in Indiana. And things really took off in the year 2000 when I was hired by TNN to be the second pit reporter with Bobby Gerald with the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series. And from that point, it's been pretty busy. I've worked with Speed TV through the years when TNN went away. As Math TV evolved with Lucas Oil, I started doing some work for them, and that's really been a good home for me. That's been about 10 years now, and it's been worked out really, really well.
And then you also, if people don't know, you did some work for the Indianapolis Radio Network.
Yeah, from I think about 04, I believe it was, to 2010, I was a pit reporter on the Indy 500 broadcast. Also did a few races. I think I went to Milwaukee and maybe, I don't really remember where all I went. I went to several other tracks around the country covering IndyCar for the radio network. It was a lot of fun. I mean, it was not easy, but it was a good experience.
And then, are you doing any TV for Lucas Oil this weekend?
No, I'm all done with Lucas through this year. We did the Dirt Track World Championship at Portsmouth, Ohio for the late models, Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series. That was 2 weeks ago in Portsmouth, Ohio, as I said. And I'm all done. That wraps up their series, and my next outing is the Chili Bowl in January.
So, do you have an opinion on the ASCS Championship that's for this weekend?
Well, I know it's a little tighter. Sam Haferteep has been kind of owned that thing, and I know Blake Hahn is right in the thick of it, and that's a great series too. I did their TV for probably 4 years, just a few years ago, before I shifted over to begin doing the All-Star races. But the ASCS guys are really good guys to work with. They're good racers. They've got a very challenging format with their qualifiers and passing points, and it's a good group to follow. But yeah, we'll see how that plays out. It's going to be a big weekend in Texas.
And then next weekend is the World Finals, the battle between Shots and Sweet.
Yeah, a little closer than it normally is there too. Donnie has had such a run with the Outlaws now for several years, and this year it's pretty interesting. I think a lot of people are excited about Charlotte, and it'll be a fun outing for sure.
Then I know. Can you talk a little bit about the interview with Jason Johnson won the Nationals and his famous line?
You know, that was just a great moment. Obviously, something like that, when it's happening, you really have no idea. I mean, you kind of know all moments like that are once in a lifetime, but obviously we didn't know what would happen, you know, with Jason down the line. And it made that moment, you know, I think all the more enduring, at least for me, because you know, even before that happened, Jason and I have been friends for many years, and I remember, you know, when he got started, he kind of had long odds, and it was a hard, long road for him to establish himself, and he obviously had tremendous success, and so to see him win the Knoxville Nationals that night, I mean, I knew that was just a really, really special moment, and you know, of course, he was so fired up, and one thing I do remember about that night is that the victory lane, it's always, you know, a little bit chaotic, but man, that was just over the top that night. It was crowded with people. There was this massive outpouring of emotion for Jason, and the crowd, you know, the crowd of Knoxville is really special because it's a lot of people, and you can feel that energy. And I don't think there was anybody, even the most diehard Donnie Schatz fan, I think was excited at just how that all came about. I mean, to see Jason win the Knoxville Nationals, it was just an unforgettable moment. And of course, he cooperated with a great, memorable line when he got out of the car. And, you know, as they say, the rest is history.
And then this year was the same exact feeling when the 41 won again.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different dynamic. I was happy for the team, obviously, you know, everybody that they've gone through, Bobby and everybody, just to be there and to see him win that race, that was special. But by his own right, you know, I was really happy for David Gravel because, you know, he had had some serious heartache there before. And a young guy, a first-time winner, that was very cool. Just, again, one of those moments that lasts in your mind for a really long time.
And then the best kept secret, I think, and people miss out, is the final race at Knoxville of the year, the Late Model Nationals.
That's been great since the very beginning, in my opinion. I like both types of cars, so it is difficult for me to say that. They've really created a neat event. The late models race that track really well. And a 100-lap race, even with they have their own fuel stop, but a 100-lap race is a really different kind of animal. And it's fun. You know, it's 3 good nights, and there's a lot of tension. And you know, I hope that they continue to build hard. I mean, it seems to me, I don't count the tickets, but it seems to me that they get more people each passing year. And definitely everybody's enthusiastic. So it's one of those events that I think is heading the right direction. It's really a lot of fun. I've had the pleasure of working every single one of them they've ran, and they've all been memorable. They've all been good.
Yeah, and then this year with the rain before, thinking, oh, we might have to come back, and now the track crew can work.
Yeah. Yep. We've seen just about everything there. I mean, Knoxville, like every racetrack, I guess, it's got its own brand of magic. And, you know, I remember one year for the late models, it rained for 3 straight nights, and we ended up running it on Sunday, and the track was real heavy. And, you know, you just see a little bit of everything. And the very first one, man, it was so cold at that first one. I don't think I've ever been any more cold at a racetrack than I was that night. We used to run it, that first one they ran something like the middle or third week of October. Man, that was late. You know, that was early cold by then. And since that time, they moved it up into September, and that's been a much more hospitable environment, I can tell you.
And then speaking of the All-Stars, how did you like 34 Raceway down in Burlington?
That was a lot of fun. Interesting story for me at 34. I mean, I've probably driven the Knoxville Raceway from my home here in Indiana I don't know, maybe 7,500 times through the years. And I take US 34 across when I drive over. So I've driven by that racetrack, literally dozens and dozens of times, usually on a Wednesday midday or a Sunday afternoon or Sunday morning when I'm driving home. But I've never seen a race there. And so all those, times I thought, man, I've got to get here. That's a neat looking little racetrack. And so this year when I saw the All-Star schedule for our TV production and saw that 34 was there, it was pretty exciting for me personally. I finally got to check that one off the bucket list.
It's even for late models. It's a racy place.
I'm sure it is. I just really like it because it's hospitable. It's a comfortable place to go. It's just a fun, great old racetrack, and the people there. Forgive me, I can't remember the owner's names. It's a nice couple, and they just couldn't have been more friendly and welcoming. And that means a lot. It's kind of a grind to do all these, and it makes a difference if you feel like you're really wanted at a racetrack, and they really are excited about television being there. And those guys were. I mean, they just threw their doors open, and they just couldn't have been more helpful. It was a great night. I hope we go back this next year.
Yeah, Brad and Jesse, I can't think right now. I know their names.
Anyway, nice people.
Yeah, they are. I've talked to them a number of times. Anyways, but did you get to go to the controversy when the All-Stars had it in Pennsylvania or not?
I missed that by one night. We were at Lincoln, I believe, previous night, and then they went on to, I think it was BAPS that Sunday night, and we didn't cover that. We had three straight. We did Grandview, we did Williams Grove, and then we did Lincoln on Saturday night. We're not able to continue to go on to BAPS, so I missed that, but obviously, follow along with it real time, and then heard a lot about it later. Just unfortunate. Those guys, most racing officials, nearly all racing officials, they work really hard to get it right. Sometimes circumstances are that, it's difficult for everybody and they make a call and people don't agree and you just kind of have to move on. But they did a good job, I felt like, of trying to remedy that. I know they reached out to all the teams that were affected. And when we went back 2 weeks later at Port Royal, it felt like everybody had buried the hatchet. The racers weren't complaining about it. It was over and done with, and they were ready to put it behind them and move on. And honestly, that's the best you can do in those circumstances.
Getting back to your book writing, I know you've done Brad Doty, Jack Hewitt, The Wolf. Who haven't you done that you would like to sit down and do with?
Well, I'd really like to write a book with Steve Kinzer. Hopefully that will happen. I still have hopes of doing it, and we've talked, and my biggest problem is just being overcommitted with too many projects, and I need to get caught up a little bit and get going with Steve. But that's something that's definitely on my radar. There's a couple projects down through the years that I wish I had done, but at the time, I didn't really know enough about the process. I hadn't written the book yet, and I just didn't know enough about the process to know how to do it. But I wish a book could have been written about the Weld family when Kenny and Greg were still with us, because what a phenomenal story that could have been. And once they passed away, though, I mean, the idea of doing the story, at least for me personally, wouldn't be nearly as dynamic, because I really liked Kenny and Greg both. They were super interesting people, and that would have been a great book. So that's one that kind of got away a little bit that I wish I could have done.
Did you happen to read the one with Larry Weeks about Bob Trossel?
Yes, I did. I had that book, and Bob and I had talked a little bit too, but I know that he and Larry were very close, and Larry had a lot of passion, and it's fitting that he wrote that book. I mean, he was very, very close to Bob, and Bob's life was important, and it was worthy of, putting down on paper forever, and I'm glad they did that. Bob was a really special person. Obviously, aside from being a great racer, he was just a neat guy, and I miss him. Yeah, and
a lot of people can say they went to the school of Bob Trossel.
That's exactly right. You know, he was a huge influence over a lot of people, man, a lot. You know, he just had a way about him to teach and nurture and guide, and he was smart, and he was willing to share with people, whether you were racing with him or bought one of his chassis or even just went up and asked him. I mean, he was a huge influence in that region, huge, immeasurable.
Yeah. And then going to somewhere close to home, any good Brian Clausen family stories?
You know, I just remember those guys when Brian was so young, such a kid. He was 13 years old, and he had come here to the Midwest. And I remember sitting at a table with him probably that first year at the Eldora Speedway. It was a fundraising thing they have in Ohio, in Salina, Ohio, each year in November. They still have it. And I can't remember the charity that it benefits, but they usually have a NASCAR type speaker that will come, and it's really a cool deal. And Earl Baltus and I, he invited me to join he and Bernice to come over, and so I went over and sat at their table, and they seated us with Tim and Diana Clausen and their kids. And like I say, Brian was probably 13, 14 years old, and here's this skinny little kid, you know, and everybody's saying, he's going to be a sprint car driver. He's racing right now. And, you know, deep inside you're saying, yeah, right. You know, this kid really? But obviously, you know, what a racer. You know, he had as well, we talked of Trossel a moment ago. Brian had a terrific impact here in Indiana and on the USAC circuit and just among people in general. I mean, he just had this infectious passion for racing that people could relate to. And even though he wasn't with us a lot of years, he had a lot of impact.
And of course, his two dogs.
That's right, Chevy. I can't remember the other one.
Stu.
Well, what is it?
Stewart.
Stewart. That's right, Stewart. Yes. Yep.
And can you see down the line, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the dirt track now having more events?
That's a tough call. They've obviously done a super job with their midget race. Doug Bowles is a really smart guy, and he's done a phenomenal job at the Speedway the last 10 years. Every time I see him, I tell him that. I just can't get over what a good job he's done and how he's engaged the Indianapolis and the racing community. And they really hit upon something special there. But I think what would keep it special is using it very little. One, maybe two events a year, and that's it. I think it's like anything else. The uniqueness of it would be diminished a lot very quickly if they ran a lot of races there. It's special that you only get to go there, you know, on special occasions. And if it were me, I would keep it that way.
And then you do a little bit with must-see racing back in the day.
You know, yes, back in the day. I haven't done any of those. My schedule just got with Mass TV where it just wasn't possible anymore to balance both of those. They had some great events. It's another fun group of racers. And the wing cars on pavement, if you haven't seen them, they're rockets. They are rockets, and they're fun. I miss doing those races. I miss seeing those races, really. And I don't get a lot of the races are up in Michigan and Wisconsin, that area, and it's harder for me to get there because of my travel schedule. But Jim Hanks and his guys have done a great job.
And then, do you have the deal with Australia right now? The sadness on that deal. Do you know much more on that?
No, the only thing I read is that the state has said that the government there has said that they will build another speedway. But you know, Parramatta, you can't replace things like that. I mean, people in that community, they've raced there now for 15, 20, 30 years. I remember being there 2004, I think it was, when the World of Outlaws made their first trip down there. I think they called it Outlaws Down Under. And I was on the PA at that time with Wade Onger, I think, was there. Excuse me, that's not true. Dean Neal was there, the PA at Parramatta, and Robbie Farr. Jamie Farr, excuse me, Robbie's his brother, the racer. And it was a historic night, and it was a great racetrack with a ton of atmosphere and history, and the people there. You can build another racetrack, and you can pick up some of those fixtures and move them, but you can't move and recreate fully the experiences and the memories that all those people have there at that venue. So I'm just very sad. When we lose a racetrack, no matter how hard you try, you can't really make up all of that loss. I know those people, they're still in shock, and I think their shock will, if this plays through, will eventually turn into a period of grieving and mourning. And then they just, we have to move on. But it's just a sad chapter. I hate it.
Yeah, I do too. Any couple good Earl Baldus stories to wrap this up with?
Earl was one of the most unique people I've ever known. He was not a highly educated man, but he had a way about him, a savviness with people that was very, very strong, very memorable. He could be rough around the edges, don't get me wrong, but he really knew how to work a crowd. And, hearing him tell those stories of the early days of that racetrack in the 1950s, when they really weren't all that different from any other racetrack in the country. They were just trying to get people through the gates, and the racing they had wasn't all that phenomenal yet, in those very early years. And, with nothing but shoe leather and determination at barbershops and bars and grocery stores all around Western Ohio, Earl hung up banners and hung up posters and talked to people and shook hands. And he built that track by hand, almost one person at a time. And those memories we had when we were sitting in his house, just the two of us, just listening to his stories and working on that book, that was a rare privilege. That was something very special, and I'll never forget that time. Never.
I want to hit on one more promoter, Ralph Capitani.
Yeah, another one that will never be duplicated. What Cappy could do with a complicated and complex fairboard environment was remarkable. He just had a way, again, with people, and he put Knoxville Raceway on the map big time. Now, don't get me wrong, Marion Robinson, Ray Grimes, those guys were important, and they kept it alive and made it what it is. But at just the right time, Cappy came along, and he took it to a special place. He made it arguably the greatest short track in the world. I mean, you could make that argument. And but not only that, you know what? He was just such a nice person. He could accomplish great things and make difficult calls and do it in a way he never compromised the integrity of his personality. He treated everybody with genuine respect and decency, and that's not easy in a position of leadership. You can make people mad, and he just had a way of just treating people right. I love that guy. He was irreplaceable.
And it's nice to have the race during the Nationals, the Capitani, that Sunday night before as a tribute.
Yep, great thing. Yep, Cappy is he's one of the all-time good guys. When you lose someone like that, man, you lose a lot, and there's no doubt.
Yeah, we appreciate your time, Dave, and hopefully see you down the road.
That's great, Marshall. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
Good luck with your show.
Thanks.
All right, bye-bye now.
Bye.
And that was Dave Argabright. And I can tell you a personal Capitani story was the night 1993 Nationals. It rained. He was willing to pay and call the Nationals final on lap 13 if it continued raining. And then another year, 1994, was when Kinder lost a muffler. Ralph said, "A rule's a rule," and then here's the media. "Oh, he won't do anything because it's Steve Kinser." I loved and respected that man, and he's sorely missed. Coming soon on the show in the next couple weeks will be the first annual Christmas guide. If you would like to be a part of the Christmas guide or know some items, please either tweet the page on Twitter or Facebook the page on Facebook. And we'll have the first annual Christmas guide to help you out. That will be in the coming weeks on the show. Always stay up on the latest news, driver updates, and things either on our Twitter page or like us on Facebook and get all the latest news and stuff and things right quickly. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Dirt Racing Podcast. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Racing Podcast.